All right, well, welcome back to our podcast. And I always like to remind people in the Cortex Leadership Training world, we also like to call them Corecasts. With me, Lynda McNutt Foster with Cortex Leadership Consulting. And instead of saying me, I should also introduce myself, right? Becky Freemal with WFXR News. And via Skype, computer, airwaves, however you want to go, we got Raphael Viton, and he is the co-author of Free the Idea Monkey. And I'm going to stick with Raph, if that's okay. Is that all right?
That's perfect.
Perfect. And did I slaughter your name or did I do okay?
No, it was very, very elegant.
Very elegant. Let's start. You know what I actually want to start with? Not everyone is saying this, but for those of you who can't see what he's wearing, he has a big old t-shirt on that says, "Make mistakes." Talk about that. Why is that so important enough to have it on your t-shirt?
Well, it seems rather contrary to what we're taught growing up and what we're taught in corporate America, at least what I was taught in the last 20 or 30 years. It definitely was not a system that seemed to encourage you to make mistakes or to be proud of the fact that you might be engaging in some new form of anything where failure was a possibility.
Free the Idea Monkey. What is your message? What are you trying to get out to the readers?
So the title of the book is Free the Idea Monkey, and then in small letters, subhead is to focus on what matters most. And the idea that we came across in corporate America and in even our own small business that we were building while delivering all these innovation strategy consulting engagements was that there's this very interesting polarity out there between that we use this metaphor to make it simple, right? The idea that there are idea monkeys who come up with ideas all day long, and there's ringleaders who try to keep the monkeys in check and try to make sure that the monkeys really do use that energy on what matters most in terms of building new competencies, taking on a new market, building something of value for the organization. And many times innovation is looked at like it's this wild domain of idea monkeys, and it's just for fun and blue sky and just do anything you want. It doesn't really matter. Just have ideas. Let's lay down on the floor and close our eyes and just dream a little bit. And in the corporate world, that's really not how innovation works. It's far more diligent, far more fiduciary attention paid to the investment and return. And there's a way to really channel that energy of the idea monkey on the highest economic value segments with the highest economic value insight for each segment of your target market, and within the capabilities or the desired product, service, business model, customer service experience you want to create. There's an expert way to do innovation, and it includes a marriage between the idea monkeys and ringleaders, not just accepting that one is good and one is less good, which is typically what the unhealthy tension is.
Right.
And instead of say, how do we create a love affair between these two energies, these two operational mindsets, so that we really can have sustainable innovation?
Well, Lynda, here locally in Virginia, you've introduced me to so many people like Raph, all these other people who are doing this consulting and training on a global level. Mm-hmm. Talk about in our area in Southwest Virginia, what you see when you talk about those idea monkeys in one hand. And I mean, I kind of envision it as like the creative types who are trying to come up with ideas, and they've got a conference room full of toys, but it's to get their mind going. And then you've got the executives who look down their nose and they're like, if it's not quantitative physics, I don't care. How do you get these people to get together? Not that everyone's doing physics, but do you hear a lot of that concern between the two sides kind of being polar opposite, opposed to working together?
Yes. And,
yes.
Yes. And I think it goes back to the story that we did on the teamwork cycle, mm-hmm. where such a small percentage of the leaders that we've assessed are very strong in vision and ideation, and 60% are strong in planning and then execution. So there's a definite definite observation during meetings themselves to see how quickly ideas can be shot down. So when research was done, within 8 seconds, an idea is shot down in a meeting. 8 seconds. So an example I have is I was working with a nonprofit, and we were trying to come up with a set of ideas to do major release of something. And so when we got to ideas, I said, okay, let's go with ideas. And in about 5 minutes, they came up with 5 ideas. They were like, we're good. I'm like, no, we haven't even started. Like, and I go, and you know what I said? I said, okay, now I want all the stupid ideas that you haven't said yet, that you think are absolutely ridiculous, that couldn't possibly work. Bam, 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 bam. Then they started talking about all these ideas. And it was the very last idea that, you know, a high planner type said, well, I think this is ridiculous. But what if we were to do this? And it was a complete, immediate consensus. So,
interesting.
Right. I think that there's processes that Raph and I are working with clients that we have to allow them to sort of learn how to play, learn how to say, we don't have to have quantifiable things immediately.
Right.
We need to open our minds to the creativity first and then bring the planners in.
Well, and Raph, a question too, when we talk about teamwork cycle, because a lot of people don't know this. Okay, and I'm the student in this group, so I'm going to try to tell everyone it's vision at first, then you go to ideas, then you go to planning, and then you execute, right?
Yes.
Tick
Very
tock,
good.
tick tock, tick tock.
Excellent work.
So look at that. I listened in class. So how important is that teamwork cycle from vision to ideas to planning to execution, and what you're talking about, Raph, on getting these two sides to stop being polar opposites and instead join forces?
Yeah, I mean, engaging in the process with whichever side of the spectrum you're on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're far one side, monkey side, far on the other side of ringleader. And the reality is everybody is somewhere on the spectrum, and I talk about innovation leadership isn't about recognizing just when to use one or the other, but it's really about knowing when to shift and when to use one of those, when you're in a divergent part of the process versus a convergent part of the process. So using what Lynda was talking about there, different parts of the process really do require different strengths. And the idea monkeys should be used heavily during the open up, think about as many ideas as possible, don't judge anything yet. Mm-hmm. Right? But we're conditioned to be very evaluative inside of corporate America. And part of our identity and our self-worth and the way the company values us is based on how quickly we can evaluate something as good or bad.
Right.
And worthwhile or not. And so we get so caught up in using those muscles that we never, often too many of us don't develop the other muscles which are complementary. So we've got, and the monkeys are few and far between inside of most of corporate America, as your research kind of suggested. And research done by Ron Heifetz out of Harvard, I think, and Wilkinson documents some of the same thing. And they don't obviously call them ringleaders or idea monkeys. They actually look at different types of problem-solving tendencies between executives, some which prefer the technical and traditional type of problem-solving, right or wrong, all the way to the more complex and adaptive types of problem solving, which have infinite types of possibilities, and somewhere in there too is the ability to recognize that is heavily influenced by people's aversion to ambiguity and their aversion to uncertainty and their aversion to those kinds of things, which makes them really prefer one type of problem solving, one type of conversation versus others.
So here's a question, and Lynda, I'll ask you this, just dealing with corporations in our area. What is that first step that needs to take place to kind of extend that olive branch from one side to the other? Because I think someone might say, hey, I'm an idea monkey, but these people will never take me seriously. So how do you walk into that room so you're taken seriously? And from the executive's point of view, how do you have an open mind so that you can welcome those ideas? Like, how do you just start that conversation?
That's a really excellent question, because the older I get, being an idea monkey, it's so much easier when I'm invited in. So when idea monkeys are invited in and people are curious about what those ideas are, it brings out the best and most creative ideas and visions. Because it's very difficult when you're trying to push ideas on somebody. That's not going to go well. So the first is inviting the ideas and then knowing how to facilitate them. So on the other side, in our classes, when we run these mock exercises with real issues. Actually, we were in class the other day with a heavy planner, and she was facilitating, and I sit there and I coach her in real time. She said, wow, I didn't realize how quickly I was shutting down ideas. I didn't understand what being hungry with curiosity was until we went through this exercise, and I could watch the body language of people in the difference between tell me more and wait, we can't do that, or trying to push them to another process. So honestly, the invitation of ideas for many people is going to be a coaching process where they learn how to lean into curiosity instead of confirmation.
Okay.
I like that. And I'll add to that. Without the invitation, it rarely works, right? And the idea that I like to say, even before curiosity, like often it's hey, can you do a workshop that makes my people more curious and more creative? I'm like, well, yeah, there are techniques that help practice that, but the curiosity muscle, more often than not, is preceded by the humility muscle. Would you like to work on the humility muscle first? Which is really just a way of doing what Lynda said, which is actually some experiential work that helps people start to recognize where they are exhibiting perhaps a knower mindset, right? A fixed mindset, a tendency to hold on to what they know at all costs and be very defensive against that different kind of energy. And in corporate America, if we want to wrap up the metaphor of monkey ringleader, I typically like to say, you know what? Here's the bottom line. Monkeys are better at innovation than ringleaders because they're predisposed to be open, and when they need to, they could be very convergent. However, they're not really into that convergent thing. So they need ringleaders. They need strong ringleaders who can help manage the monkeys to use that creative energy on really important focused goals and insights. And so part of the tension, the way I like to relieve the tension for most ringleaders, since ringleaders are the dominant member of the power structure inside of corporations. Hey, ringleaders, monkeys are better, but guess what? You ringleaders have all the power. So just take it easy. Just take it easy. You run the whole show anyway. You're in charge of the work plan. You're in charge of the budgeting, the evaluating, all that kind of stuff. And invite the monkeys in and use them in a very expert way to get the outcome you want, as opposed to stuffing them in a closet and muzzling them and doing things that's counterproductive.
Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up because I know you also do a lot of work on the global level as well, and I'm curious to talk a little bit about your clients and what you see in other areas of the world. But we'll end it with that, and we'll be right back with again Raphael Louis Viton in just a moment.